Okay, so what is the Waqf Amendment Bill? Everything you needed to know about that bill is in this video. So remember, like, share, subscribe, as we'll tell you what the bill is about, why it is contentious, what happened in Parliament, and what the final end result was. It's created a big standoff between government and opposition, but spoiler alert, the government won. What is Waqf property to begin with? Now, the definition is effectively a charitable endowment where an individual dedicates either movable or immovable property for religious and philanthropic processes as part of the Muslim law. Now, once it's designated as Waqf, it cannot be sold, transferred, inherited, or given away. And in India, we have boards, special Waqf boards that are run by the Muslim community to manage these properties. And we have Waqf tribunals that actually adjudicate in case there is any sort of dispute. Now, come to the bill. Why was this bill actually brought? Now, there has been an attempt for a very long time to actually streamline the management of these properties because there's such a lot of it, and to improve governance and prevent misuse. There was a 1954 bill which is now being amended by this bill in 2025. Interesting trivia point though. India has a total of 8.7 lakh properties under these boards, and it covers about 38 lakh acres. So apparently in the whole world, India has the highest value, the largest number of Waqf properties. And also within India, after the railways and the armed forces, it's the Waqf boards that actually control the most, the most real estate in the entire country. So this is an important sort of asset class in terms of management. So what has happened so far? Parliament early on Friday morning, early I mean like 2 in the morning, concluded its massive debate in Rajya Sabha and passed that bill. It was a 13-hour debate that ended at 2:30 in the morning. The bill was passed in Rajya Sabha. The government, so the NDA led by the BJP, had the votes and they were able to pass it in Rajya Sabha with 128 members voting in favor, 95 opposed it. In Lok Sabha the previous day, 288 members supported and 232 opposed it. Here's the interesting thing. It was the first time that all the opposition parties, the India bloc, the erstwhile India bloc of the previous general elections, came together and voted as a bloc with one voice. And there was no sort of pulling away in any part of that. And that has not happened for a while, so that was an interesting thing to note. Now, why is this bill contentious and what does it say, right? These are the things that it says. It says in institutions, Waqf institutions that are earning more than 1 lakh rupees per year will undergo audits by state-sponsored auditors. There will be a centralized portal where all of them will have to register, all properties will have to register, improving efficiency and transparency. Now, it proposes that practicing Muslims for at least 5 years can dedicate their property. It stipulates that women must receive inheritance before the declaration. Special provisions have been made for widows, divorced women and orphans. The bill proposes that an officer of the rank of collector, district collector or above, investigate government properties that are being claimed as Waqf properties. It also proposes non-Muslim members to be included in central and state Waqf boards for inclusivity. Now, here are the controversy points, right? The council and boards including non-Muslims as well is something that has, that has raised eyebrows and made people frown. Dispute resolution. Government officials have been appointed to sort out disputes between the Waqf board and the government. So if the government says, no, this is government property, and the board says, no, this is Waqf property, the person who makes that final decision is a government officer. And the argument is that a government officer will never decide against government. Now, the tribunal has also been restructured to include government appointed officials on tribunals. And like I said, there'll be mandatory registration. But here are the main points that have come up in argument between opposition and government and between critics and government, right? So there are main 4 points. One, why amend the law at all? That's one of the main points that are being argued. Asawuddin Owaisi, for example, has said that the bill's objective is only to weaken the foundation of Waqf governance and undermine the rights of Muslims and bring government oversight. So basically bring in the government to actually meddle with and dismantle the community's ability to make their own decisions. Now, on the flip side, this is what the government argues. Government officials say that the 1995 Act contains loopholes with regard to regulation of properties, title disputes, illegal occupation of Waqf land, and that is what has prompted the central government to bring in the new law. Also, the second point, the lack of judicial oversight, because the tribunals was run by the community, and what this law does is effectively say that if you're unhappy with a decision of the tribunal, you can approach the courts with that decision as well. The second major criticism is government interference. The bill gives the government the ability to handle, regulate and manage properties, and the power to determine whether a property is waqf or not. And effectively, because those decisions will lie with the district collector. The bill also states that until the government makes the decision, the disputed property will be treated as government property and not waqf property. The next argument is the allowance of non-Muslim chief executive officer and at least 2 non-Muslim members appointed by the state government onto the boards at the state level. Now, the critics are arguing that this will interfere with the community's rights to manage its own affairs, which is a constitutionally protected right. If you look through the fundamental rights, this is something that is allowed to communities. But the government officials argue that the move is aimed to bring in expertise and to promote transparency without undermining the community's representation. So these are the main contentions. Basically, the community feels that their ability to manage their own affairs, their ability to adjudicate their own affairs are being taken away and largely handed over to government officials in a manner where it gives the government official the final say. And the government is saying, no, this is an attempt to bring in expertise, to bring in transparency and to bring in better management. These are the two sides of the argument. Now, what is the opposition been saying? The opposition is saying, for example, leader of opposition Mallikarjun Kharge has said this is divisive. It's intended to torment minorities. MDMK chief Vaiko has said that it is anti-federal, anti-democratic, anti-secular. And this is generally the view. The Congress's Kapil Sibal has questioned the entire purpose. He said the Muslim community should not be targeted through this legislation. On the other side, on behalf of the government, it is Kiran Rijiju who actually spoke, the Union Minister of Parliamentary Affairs, and this is what he has said. He's called it the Umeed Bill. He's saying because it gives hope of a new dawn to the entire Muslim community. He said, I want to say the discussion has taken place on Waqf Amendment in the joint committee of both houses that has never done in parliamentary history of India to date, and I congratulate those members. He said the Muslim community is welcoming the bill with open arms, and some people are opposing the bill. I want them to come to my home, he said, so they can witness Muslim delegations meeting me and welcoming the bill, and it will change the way you think. Now, this is the most important thing he said. He said the government is not going to interfere with any religious institution. The changes that are being made right now, the bill has nothing to do with religion. It deals only with properties. He said it's not interfering with a religious system, a religious institution, or a religious practice in any way. But nevertheless, the bill was presented in Lok Sabha, 12 hours of debate, it was passed. It was presented in Rajya Sabha, 13 hours of debate, and it was passed. But like always, there's always an angle of politics, because unlike the previous term, the BJP doesn't have a brute majority in Lok Sabha, so it gets by with a little help from its friends. So it needs its allies to vote in its favor. So like I told you, on the opposition side, the entire opposition, the India bloc, came together for the first time since that previous election, saying, no, we're going to vote as a bloc and we're all going to vote against the bill. And it was unanimous. But on this side, there were some questions of whether the two key allies, which is Chandrababu Naidu and Nitish Kumar, will vote in favor of government, and they did. And this is why that was interesting. Now, for example, Chandrababu Naidu has to keep an eye on his own state, and within his state, there is an area called Rayalaseema, which is a stronghold of his opponent, Jagan Mohan Reddy's YSRCP, right? So while TDP voted in favor of this bill, which proposed non-Muslims on the boards of Waqf boards of state governments, apparently the decision was taken after Chandrababu Naidu had held consultations with legal experts and Muslim groups within his state. And even though there is in the entire state a 9.5% Muslim population, Chandrababu Naidu and his team seemed fairly clear that through their consultations that this was the right way to go. On the other side, Nitish Kumar, there was a very interesting move here. Nitish Kumar has an election coming up. So what is he thinking and what is his political strategy? Now, Amitabh Tiwari, who is a managing partner at and a political commentator at Ascendia Strategies, basically said that Nitish Kumar doesn't have a lot of Muslim support left anyway. It's mostly eroded because of his alliances. And so this was a calculated risk that he was willing to take. The other plus point is that the JDU enjoys a very, a block vote share in every election, and that remains steady irrespective of the decisions that it makes. And so this is not going to affect its, its sort of fortunes in the next elections. For example, the JDU contested the 2014 Lok Sabha polls. It got 16% vote, mostly from Dalits and other backward classes. When it contested 2019 with the BJP, apparently it saw a decline in its Muslim Yadav vote, but it saw a massive uptick in its upper caste vote and its economically backward classes OBC votes, and so that got evened out. And so Nitish Kumar has also made a sort of calculated political judgment here. Although from within his party, according to the Indian Express, two prominent Muslim leaders stood up against this decision, and one of them quit. So this is the district leader from East Champaran, Muhammad Ansari, who quit, and he sent out a resignation in which he said, "I've given my life to this party and I'm deeply disheartened by what the party has decided." Now, the Congress has decided that it will very soon challenge this bill in Supreme Court, even though it has been passed in Parliament. Jairam Ramesh of the Congress said that we will be challenging this in court. We are confident and we'll continue to resist all assaults of the government on the Constitution of India. So it's very interesting, but for whether or not the Congress does manage to go to court and whether or not the court decides in whose favor, as of now the bill has passed. It will go to President, which tends to be a formality, as we know. President will sign it, it will become the law, and it will become a law that gets implemented very quickly. So the government here showing its intent, and also showing that it does have a mastery, even though it doesn't have the brute numbers in Parliament anymore, it has a mastery, or it's developed a mastery of floor management of Parliament, of ally management of, or coalition management of Parliament, in order to push the bill through. So for the first time, like I said, we saw opposition really dig in its heels and say that this is something we're united with. The government not having the brute force majority still managed to bring the law through.